Award in 2019. Kao ADJEI Award in 2019. The Kao Achievement Award in 2019. So we are talking to, or we use this in some guys, all sort of fairness and good in general, both the West and the literary space. So you are welcome.
Thank you very much. We don't have much time to spend, so I'm going to go straight over to the reading. And I will read first from the collection of short stories. The collection of short stories, Guilty as Charged. And it has 14 stories that I'll read from. Just two, very short essays from two. The first is a story titled My Beef with Prophet Manasseh. It's a story about one of these modern day Talatara pastors who deceive women. This woman is pregnant, thinks she's pregnant, but she's actually suffering from fibroid. Says she's pregnant and she doesn't have to go to hospital. So I read from a section where this woman is going through severe pain and eventually gets out and going for surgery. All right. Back to the present. 6 months into my pregnancy, I'm still bleeding. Painful menstrual discharges, I believe, though not regularly. Strange thing for a pregnant woman. Come to think of it, I'm not experiencing the fabled morning sickness, eating cowling play or yen for exotic dishes like others in my condition. Neither are my breasts showing any signs. I concede though that there are some changes taking place in my system. Easy fatigability, bulging stomach, pressure on my waist, lower abdominal pain. The cherubim prayer camp is stacked somewhere in Kokomi, close to the beach. It's a beehive, teeming with people with all kinds of spiritual and medical needs. Prophet Manasseh is the all. It's a matter of faith in each individual's heart. I've counted about 8 pregnant women, so I'm in good company. Like all of them, I'm here because Dr. Manasseh has decreed against antenatal attention in the medical facility. We are here to be protected against witches, wizards, and other evil forces that are eating the fetuses in the homes. Or those who take life in suppressing the normal growth of fetuses. There are at least a couple of us who are carrying two-step pregnancies. That's how we keep this category of witches are. Prophet Manasseh will examine all of us physically. I mean manually, and apply his magical anointing oil all the way into the uterus. Prayer and fasting will do the rest. Testimonies in church about breakthroughs and cherubim prayer camp have become like here for my worship. Prophet Manasseh's personal assistants are all over the place, doing things in his name. There will be rapture when he himself makes his triumphant entry pretty soon. 2 weeks have come, and my condition is getting worse. My abdominal and waist pains are intensifying. Prophet Manasseh says it's normal. I'm going into labor. I'm bleeding profusely. I'm losing blood. I'm getting scared. I start screaming. I wake up with a sea of smiling faces. Unmistakably medical faces. They appear to be happy because I've come down nicely, I suppose. I don't remember how I got here. But I do know for certain that my body has been tinkered with. I have been voided of something. I feel light. Where's the baby? I ask. There's a look of consternation on their faces. The baby, I repeat, a sharp abdominal pain announces itself. It's different from the lower abdominal pain I feel before. Cesarean, I tell myself. I'm convinced because I've learned that at my right age, the number of deliveries offered by cesarean and it could be dicey. Either the baby or the mother, or both at risk. I'm lucky to be alive and die. And I believe so for my child. The baby, my baby, I implore for plenty quiver in the voice. Silence. People trading curious looks. All eyes on me. They change from curious to pitiful. I return the gaze, tracing the contours on every face, even as they begin to collectively blend into a film of peasant defeats. All of the certificate standpoints that colleague, who shackles lazily at the board. She returns holding a white plastic bucket, her face blank. I'm helped gingerly into a position where I can see the content of the bucket. The bucket is almost full. I open my eyes wide. I see what looks like a large chunk of boneless beef dressed in pools of blood. Beef! What's that? I ask horrified and look away. Sorry. What's that? I repeat, mouth again. Eyes dilated from one dead face to another. Faces down as a stone. That's what we removed from the stomach. It was growing outside the room. I thought we could find the rest of sex. So, yeah. That's an example for my beef perfect fantasy. It's a long story, but that's the that's what I'm sharing.
It's before you ask me anyone a question, I will want to, because your particular story resonates very well with me because it's happening exactly as you described it to your mother's cousin. And so it is directly to me. So I will go to how do you come about with the things you write about? Because I mean, some of the things you wrote, like the prophet, I remember so you sang in Tagum, there was similar.
Yeah. Well, for a writer, your greatest resources are things happening around you, what you see, what you do, and a bit of imagination and creativity. So you combine all this in storytelling. These are things that are happening around us.
Yeah.
Every time. Pastors and single women believing that. For instance, there was a story which inspires that story. Something I saw on television that in the Minibar Swindle area, there is so much belief in witchcraft that when women get pregnant, they go to prayer camps for the duration of their pregnancy because until there are complications, then they treat the Minibar hospital. Sometime by the time they get there, it's too late. So I just try to add a bit of my personal imagination to dramatize this.
This particular one hits very close to because it's something I'm really very almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Still do it.
It's pregnancy.
Yeah.
They want it just fine.
So they have to read.
Yeah.
It's really interesting from. Okay, so I'll ask one last question then you answer that.
Okay.
I'm reading through your profile. I realized that the first book came out in 2011. Why did you take a long time to start producing for the topic?
Well, I've been engaged in literary activity for a very long time. And to begin to publish books, I didn't have much motivation until around that time when people were pushing me. You are able to why don't you write? Why don't you publish? So I publishing house I have been working for as editor. So they asked me to do the editor. I came to publish that book in 2011. That really set the tone. Thereafter, even though it wasn't right now, so proud today, really, they kind of established the writer and started publishing the works.
Yeah, as a writer, you will be back and see that the person was good.
Yeah,
I read it and I enjoyed it, so you are not the judge of it, really. The reader will be the judge.
But thereafter, I think I can humbly say that I've been quite productive because almost every year, not just researching for the blend, so we can have some kind of insight into what stories about the book. When you sit by Kobe's dream of playing professional football at God collapsed, the agent who took him to the UK abandoned him to his future. He was only 20. Now in his late 30s, he was a very bitter and frustrated man. Like others in him, whose dreams had all but petered out, going back home to an option. And signing up for the radical international jihadist group as a martyr was not an option either, until he had a chance meeting with the enigmatic Haddad in the first house in Cambridge. A big tale of one man's midlife struggle with himself, society, and the ghost of his father. So again, this story was inspired by a lot of things that I've been hearing, seeing people go abroad thinking that everything is rosy, and then the abuse are shattered, and then they fall for all kinds of. And so this young man set on has been went on to join the international jihadist group because it's, as a boss, maybe it was just a rank candidate for the country. So I'm reading from the section where he is so frustrated that he contemplates suicide before this whole idea of becoming a jihadist martyr. So I'm reading from the Psalm 39. It was a mild wintry morning. The cool breeze lashed Yusuf's back, almost piercing to his woolen jacket as he pressed hard against his body. But he felt at home, as it were. He had touched base with an old rendezvous, a familiar spiritual retreat with which he had developed a love-hate relationship. Behind his dark bubbles, which had become a permanent article of his clothing, his tear-sodden eyes recorded and absorbed everything, far and near, and every object seemed to be in some state of flux. He stood out over a concrete railing and stared hard, almost absent-mindedly immersed in the ebb and flow of the Thames as he passed under the London Bridge, carrying along part of the city's waste, and perhaps part of his own 2 decades sojourn in this fascinating, this small archipelago with a big history. Growing up in the UK, he wondered how such a small country had once upon a time dominated the entire world, and why he boasted it was the empire on which the sun never set. He put it down to the spirit of adventure. All those Anglo-Saxon daredevils who against all odds rode the waves and scoured any terrains looking for treasure and fame. Explorers who in their quest discovered places and people, often strange places and human species which they thought needed some polish and redefinition according to the English paintbrush, and they were clever and patriotic. While other places they discovered the name after their queens, kings, and themselves. and the subhuman human species became as property. Now, every corner of the planet was some vestige of this time. As he continued to look down the river, he thought he was seeing his own reflection. A trapped animal straddling mid-river, swimming against the tide. His back was turned to the stream of vehicles and people moving to and fro. His whole life in the country was flashing before his eyes, like a condemned felon at the gallows, with the clock ticking ominously before the descent of the executioner's hours. He had been here before, saw the future. That was him to see MAWULI on the cusp of martyrdom, greatness. He heard something fall from the sky and land from meters splash to the deck. It was fish falling from high. He looked up. Stocks were flying past. Their minds and eyes focused on their own businesses. He resumed his posture and continued to stare at the things in this steady journey. History, culture, and memory in slow motion. These broke stories from Sunday readings, riding these little birds in motorboats, ferries and yachts, serving his delights. They were well apart from him. Now he had seen and absorbed enough. His spirit had been nourished. Yes, there was something to the preaching about this ancient river crossing. He turned and strolled back, as quietly as he had come. His head keen, his limbs much lighter. The cool morning breeze had returned into a small mid-morning storm. So this excerpt is about he now thinking that he had a life after all. And the idea of suicide is no longer attractive to him because of the horizon. Having signed up to be a martyr, he saw the future ahead of him. But he was just going through the motions. He had been there before, very good. For me, it's not the first time I had explored the idea of suicide when people are faced with second choices or when life becomes no longer meaningful. But the two times that I explored this theme, I didn't make the subject of suicide because for me it solves no problem.
That is you getting your human side. So in this what we see is somebody who is avoiding suicide and yet hoping or looking towards some form of suicide that will have meaning. Because if you look at martyrdom, then that is on the suit because suicide bomb anyway. And so that's a suicide, a kind of suicide that has some meaning in effect. He wants meaning, and so whichever way that so it's like killing two birds with one stone, isn't it? He still kills himself and then gets the value that the meaning of life that he's seeking. Okay, so before we address the question I have, if anyone has any question for MAWULI, we will take it and then we will address. Otherwise, I will ask that you tell me how you're able to juxtapose your work, academic work, and then your recent writings.
Yeah, I've been outside academia for some time, but every time I felt that was where I belonged. I think I had a teacher. I started teaching right at the National Service. Even during National Service, I taught, and I continued. Was my teacher. I came back to teaching, and then I went into media practice. For about a decade, I was a news editor at GBC. But I love that every time there was that persistent feeling in me to go back to the classroom. And also because I felt that was a place where I could develop creative writing results. Always that you have to be in academia to be a writer. The best writers in the world are not in academia. But I felt that I needed to be closer to my calling. And I think currently I'm able to combine my teaching, my research, and my creative writing.
When you were reading, I found traces of poetry, like you could feel it, you could feel it in the sentences. Now, when an idea comes to you, how do you decide that, no, I'm going to put this into poetry, or no, it won't fit poetry to go into prose? How do you make that decision? Because, I mean, anybody who goes across the genres always have that kind of, unless maybe yours is just one genre musician, so anything that comes to your head, you tend to music. But if you do all these prose, poetry, these kind of things, you always have to decide this idea.
Yeah, for me it's not a problem. And it comes naturally. Even when I'm writing prose, poetry invades my prose. And I have to pinch myself and say, look, this is prose. And you must sanitize it in such a way that it doesn't, or you don't shortchange the reader who is not politically inclined. Because I must declare it's. But again, I am of that persuasion that storytelling doesn't have to be imprisoned in one generic form. Poetry and prose can coexist, provided you are able to balance them very well. There are poetic interludes in this, and I don't see any of my prose pieces not containing poetry.
I think it was the same in Taboo one.
Yeah, so I mean, poetry is my first love, so to speak. So I don't see how I can dispense poetry when I'm telling the story. Part of the story must filter through some kind of poetic medium. So that's how come. It's a problem sometimes because you get carried away, and if you don't handle it well, kind of team the plain, prosaic narrative, and then the thing becomes you don't know what that's poetry.
Yeah, I think I once read an interview or listened to an interview with Van Morrison, the well-known Van Morrison, and they asked her said something like, and then her response was like, she really does, she pity poets who have to chop everything up into small nuggets. She will put all everything in a prose, you know. So her sentences are very beautiful, poetic, and she gives you everything, you know, so she's not going to.
Yeah.
So I think she has similar views of prose as well. Like, so you don't necessarily have to just say that this is prose, and so it actually have the beauty of language, the beauty of the language should be taken out.
Yeah, that's the point. You, as a writer, storyteller, you play with language a lot, and the effect of that is that you are taking an ordinary story to some level of pleasure, I mean, auditory pleasure, because it appeals, even as a telling story. So I try to work on this consciously, that I want to handle language at some elevated level, and sometimes it doesn't work very well. I'm still involved my art, I'm trying to do my art, but I can't do that poetry. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who has started, any question from the, anyone has any question?
Yes.
So, Dr. ADJEI, if you have to define yourself, how do you define yourself in one sentence?
As a writer?
Yes. Do you call yourself a poet who writes the occasional
Oh!
or a novelist who writes poetry? Or
I'm just a storyteller.
Ah.
Yes, I call myself a storyteller because, I mean, poetry is storytelling using another medium, maybe a more sophisticated medium. But the bottom line that you are a storyteller. So the one word, storyteller. Yes. And my stories draw various perspectives, dimensions. For instance, somebody going to commit suicide or contemplating suicide goes to an open bridge, and then it evokes some kind of history. That, look, how can this small country, once upon a time dominated, and you try to look fun at the empire on which the sun never set. This may be dimensional, but I try to harness all those things into my story. So sometimes tell a straightforward story. The story dovetails with history, politics, geography, culture, whatever. And I enjoy my stories that way.
This one they did history, politics, and culture in contemporary writing. One of the people said something like, the reason why it's important is that sometimes when you put in politics into it, you are reading politics, you don't know you are reading politics. So it's a nice way of bringing it in. You get to know it, but then you really don't know. It's not in your face. But if you give me a political book, like it's how many people, if this is in the story, you will take some reading.
I feel like let me go to poems.
Yes, maybe before you go, just whether you've noticed over the years a sort of transition in your audience as far as the appreciation of what you produce is concerned. You know, I think that one of the difficulties of teaching literature in this Ghana has been that general tendency to make it seem as if poetry and its appreciation needs a bit more cerebral input than prose. And if you want to condense information, put it in poetry. If you want to lay it out, then put it in prose. And I just wonder, in your feedback from your audience and your readers over the years, have you seen any transition? Are more people tending to like your poetry, or more people tending to like your prose?
A very legitimate question, because from what I have gauged as far as audience reception of what is that, people are swayed more to my poetry than my prose. It's like my audience is segmented, but the balance is more on the side of those who enjoy my poetry. Both. Yeah, so that's I think people relate more to my poetry than my prose. Yeah.
So let's take some.
Okay. Because there are a couple of beautiful ladies around. You can start with a laugh for it.
Maybe then some of us are also with this. So I hope everybody will.
Okay. Faded. This one started faded. Those days, kisses used to linger on our lips like concrete. Flakes of indelible sweetness sitting instead like royals, long after we had disentangled from the fire of passion. Our spastic heaving breath, when we had reached that forbidden threshold, gathered into red clouds and swell like seasonal cyclones, turning our wandering thoughts into war drums. Beneath our closed eyes, led by the glitter of a million stars, we play with visions in wildernesses, where we roamed and floated and danced like happy colored butterflies, hungry for pollen, spoiled for fertility seeds. I massage those sensitive feelings again, against the passage of time, and you materialize from the debris of limbo. A ghost struggling to balance a kingdom at the crossroad of yesterday and today. Shorn of the flower of youth, licked dry of your nectar, that once upon a time drove me intoxicated with love. Or is it just memory? But it's okay. Feeling. When love is no longer what it used to be.
Yes, was it Manu who ever loved that love not at first sight? Whoever loved that love not at first sight? I mean,
So that's
The thing is whether it is feeling as if it was not what it was because it was not returned, or
but it's not for me to say. I've always referred my students to the French literary critic and theorist Roland Barthes. His popular article, Death of the Author, that you must privilege the reader over the author. The author has no control over how his work is interpreted. So this is what reception theory is all about. So I don't try to inflate personal or the meaning or understanding of my work, because the question to me, I write that this one comes to you, also from you, to make meaning of it. So, but I don't know it's a love poem. It's kind of love. What kind of love it expresses, I cannot say, because different people will relate to this poem from different perspectives.
young love is the best love. Young unrequited love is the best.
Yeah.
You never forget those ones.
So, let's suppose never say goodbye. This is but a parting handshake, not a final goodbye. So we go our separate ways in opposite directions, of latitudes and longitudes, of cold nights and blistering winds, I to the glades to forage for food, you to the open road to quench your eternal thirst. The dust of the soles of our feet, shed along the way, will grow into anthills, overlooking the plains and vales, define time and memory. When the echoes of our laughter and cries fade fast into nothingness, beyond the rainbows and horizons, remember, this is not a parting handshake, not a final goodbye. Let's come back home on the trumpet sound, on the day of resurrection. Never say goodbye. Another poem, Night Shift. And one of cosmic poems. The night embraces its turn, prostrate at the feet of the monarch of time. So we all shift sleeping places, not for the new bride's bed of roses, just like to sing the harmony when the day shuts its slump for a new story. We read the mystery of the stars in the eyes of the midnight cat. We toss and turn, when whirlpools in the mind trample upon our eyelids. In the false security of mosquito nets, we trade daydreams for nightmares, as the hourglass empties itself on the blind side of the water. Night shift. Time doesn't stand still. In the flat of time, things that happen in computer mosquito net, things that happen on the blind side of everybody. So again, you can read.
I'd like to ask you, okay, if anyone has any question, please. It's supposed to be interactive.
This one has things.
Okay. Ask this one. You are the one asking the question.
So, you read a couple of submissions from the students. I just want to know how you think that we are, has there been a shift between how your previous students used to write and how currently we write? Like, what's trending? The quality of words we use, has there been an increase or decrease in the quality, or is basically the same? What should we
What about the subject matter?
what should we be on the lookout?
Yeah, every year I get a batch of creative writing studies. I wouldn't like to do comparative analysis because each time we do have very, very creative, very brilliant creative writing students. People on the road, so, you know,
Always
it's a
someone
mix.
here.
Yeah. So it is, but it so happens that sometimes you have a concentration of very good students in particular year, and when they move to the next stage where you have to sit, drop some people, so the grade goes on to do what we call advanced creative writing. That's where I get my head in, because it's a very restrictive class. You can't get more than 8 students, maximum 10 in advanced creative writing, because you need to do one-on-one engagement with them, and it's not like, so over the years I have been very, very impressed that we do have these young budding writers in our midst. I count them very lucky because we didn't have the chance. I didn't start being creative yesterday. Right from secondary school, when I got to University of Ghana, there was no avenue for, just not like introduction to creative writing, advanced creative. No. Today, even oral literature, which a lot of students have. There was nothing like that. There was Shakespeare, Chaucer, Dryden, those dry writing. I call Dryden because it's very dry. So, you have, over the years, proved that there's a future for creative writing in this country because I've been teaching creative writing for close to 15 years now. And some of my products are rubbish as with the best of them, like Aisha Nelson, Fatma, Namba. There's one who won, got honorable mention, Penn International. So there are good.
So you are someone who dabbles in all the genres. Yesterday or today you're talking about screenwriting. Because yesterday there was a discussion with the producer of Azari, and he mentioned that getting a good screenwriter is very expensive. So what you do is that you get someone who can write and you give the person 3,000 scenes, and then you give the person ideas, the person tries to write it, and then you try to adapt it. Because you come to the good ones are in academia and they're expensive. Have you ever thought of writing for screen? Is this something that if someone approaches you, you will be?
I have never thought of it because it's a specialized area. It's a very technical area. The fact that I do poetry, I do prose fiction, doesn't mean I'm position to go screenwriting. I mean, this is you have to learn to do country, we don't have a pool of professional skill. Just because the way our art form is, if you take road, who wants a script? Yeah, you just conceive of a first idea.
And then you just run with it.
Spontaneity. And yet sometimes they go on vacation and then you see a lot of people on their way to farm. And then they pick up and come out here, and play this role for us. And that. So for us it's not something we see as very critical to our industry. That's why I'm not interested. Yes.
Just say, just to add to that, I think it's also a reflection of the fact that as an art form, the film industry has not really invested into, creative support. Because of course, go for the low-hanging fruits, the people who are getting to it, right? And the thing is, they are not really willing to invest into. So if you can get screenwriters and you don't want to invest into, training screenwriters, so the transition between writing for plays and writing for the screen is an important transition, but it is a very doable transition if you invest into that transition. So I think it's just the same way. Yes, they will, do all those things, make a lot of money, but they will always come back to finding some kind of structure for this, because it is this structure that will win international awards. Without that structure, you can't go to the Oscars, and the movies will remain at Hollywood, not playing down on Hollywood or anything. But the thing is that if we want to make the transition that Nollywood has made into Netflix, has made into foreign movie of the year, things like that, we need to invest into screenwriting. And they can't keep saying they can't find them if they are not making investments into doing it.
I don't feel criticism, but not. One of my most popular articles online is an adaptation of a paper I presented at the first time in 2011 in what I do. Google is there, it's been followed by hundreds, thousands of people. Right? It's titled The Video Movie Flourish in Ghana. The video movie flourish in Ghana. There's search for it, some stuff. But if you just Google the video movie flourish in Ghana, it will pop up. It's like how my most popular article on the film industry in Ghana. So I touched briefly on that, the script writing in that article that is virtually non-existent in Ghana. For obvious reasons.
At some point when we were getting the Mawu versus the Accra perform Shakespearean English, it was so difficult, So yes, I guess now we are here, or we are in, they say we are in unprecedented times because of COVID and all those things. So every time, there's several lockdowns. I think there's even been having graded lockdowns in the UK and France. Has this period has some impact on your writing? Because like you were just telling me that you have 2 manuscripts. Did you see yourself writing more during this period? Or?
Yeah, an oracle. This has been one of my most productive periods. I was able to put together close to 100 poems between December and I think May or so, when I put together there's a segment titled Corona Rhapsodies. I have about a dozen poems on the Corona experience from different perspectives. Conspiracy theory, even the mass that they're hearing, and even a couple of laugh poems on that segment where I was wondering how people make laugh.
Yeah, a lot of stories keep on doing
people have mass on this whole charade about social distancing. So I wrote a novel, but because we were just locked down doing nothing, it triggered a lot of creative activity in my brain, and I found myself writing like no other time, and that was when I put together those poems, and also my collection, a new collection of short stories. Yeah, so Corona has impacted positively me personally as far as creative activity is concerned. And my creative writing class, I also tasked them to do a couple of creative pieces, even creative nonfiction, tapping into the experiences Corona or COVID-19.
Now we take one that we give you a message, okay, and you do one aspect and then you have about ideas.
Okay. Not like this one, but I do a lot of poems on the human condition, mortality. This poem is titled Death Stops Me in Sleep. Death will pluck me in from sleep. He'll dare not touch me in the presence of my kinsman. Where was it ever heard that a snake beat a child in front of his mother? I am the hyena that steals the lion's kill, drives the master predator to the margins, falls and grows and grows till he dies of hunger. So who now bears the hyena himself? If not the silent stalker who lays ambush by my pillow, he who stampedes my dreams and their sweetest, and tramples upon my instruments of war. Who on earth, for dread of death, will banish sleep from their chemistry? When the sunflowers bow their heads in prayer, the birds go to lose and sing no more, and the last bell tolls from some distant belfry. Oh, the vineyard too, like all the cats, cast their armor garments aside, and roll their heavy eyelids inside the slumber, as the candle light death will not be foreseen. The silent stalker lets me break a window. Death will not be foreseen. Then the silent stalker lets me break a window. And let's say, by way of resources, creative resources, I draw a lot of ever folklore, oral tradition. This is a parody of every song. You've heard it many times, but I don't know whether. I will escape you when death comes for me. That's what that's in this part. So I actually parodied that song in this poem. And again, in the tradition or in literary terms, if you go to TSDA for instance, tradition and any time, this is not an art of plagiarism. You are only rehashing, reworking what already exists. So I based this poem on that song. That you don't know where that is happening. Even in the wakeful moment, it's still
Okay, so now you mentioned everything I'm interested. Yesterday we had a discussion on language, African languages.
yes.
between Prof. Ayubu and Prof. Obama. Yes. And one of the things that came out was there is some kind of beauty that flows when you are writing in your own language. You are writing, whether you are infusing it in your prose or you are writing completely in it. And even though you speak the language, his writing does not come by chance. It's not easy. You have to. In fact, Prof. Ayubu said that. Prof. Awuno told him that I know you're a professor in English, but don't ever write to me in English. When he had intention to write in Eben, he was struggling. That's what he told me. And that came about because every time that he just calls to go and read his poetry at poetry festivals, he will go and tell his family, "Oh, I'm going to Turkey, I'm going one day." But you have always been writing English for people to enjoy. Why don't you write in Eben for us to enjoy? And that's what brought about this. Now, I want to know how you treat language in your prose and poetry. Are you one of those people who write and explain? Are you one of those people who just write and leave it there for a reader to explore, or you don't even use it at all?
Yeah. I try as much as possible to infuse a bit of whatever background in my creative works, particularly poetry. But what I do is just turn language on its head sometimes in a creative way. I am not one to write in ever. This I have a running battle with myself. Why don't you write it? And I was like, look, I'm very competent in Ewe. I took Ewe as a language all the way to GC Poland. So I can write in Ewe, but I don't want to write in Ewe. Yes. But I do tap into Ewe language, philosophy, worldview, everything. One of which, yes. So, the language question has always been there for African writers. And the last Storymoya festival that was held here, I held a workshop together from Ayubu at the Boss Center on the same issue. And I presented a paper that day. I remember the African writer, speaking in tongues, the African writer and the burden of language. And I explored some of these issues. That for me, as a writer, I want to use language as a tool at all levels, not necessarily writing in my mother tongue or whatsoever. But I want to flavor my writing with nuances of expression from them, and in that show, in fact, taboo. Two students in University of Trondheim, Norway, actually did a linguistic analysis of taboo. And what it is also on the net.
Yeah.
It's titled "We Are on Our Ears." What is done with taboo is that they look at the way in which they can smell everything in my English. You understand? And one of the expressions I used, in fact, it came out when the publishing house returned the manuscript to me with the editor's comments. So, what do you mean we are on our ears? That we are all ears. That's the standard English idiom. We are all ears. But the context in which I use it, a stark illiterate old woman speaking. I wanted to place her in the niche, linguistically speaking. So the woman says in the book, okay, here, as we say, we are on our ears, and it's from Eric. Miela Toji. It was not as if I didn't know the English idiom. I'm an English teacher, but I just wanted to, transliterate. Use, but you don't do it every time. Once in a while, you splash it into sneak. That's what I was saying. That for me is the way I want to go, rather than say I want to write it everywhere. We keep trying. He is in the forefront.
Yeah, I mean,
there is only writing Gikuyu. But so far, that even in Kenya, not everybody speaks Gikuyu.
exactly.
So he had to go back to translate his Gikuyu text into English.
So he first writes in Gikuyu, he gets translated.
So it has its advantages and disadvantages. But it's a heritage. It's one of the historical accidents that English is defining who we are in everything we do. As Achebe said, English is an African language. And when asked what you meant by that, he said, that's the price the colonial master has paid for imposing itself on the people. They take your language and do whatever they please with it. They make the language their own and you no longer have a monopoly over how that language is used. That's what I want to do. I want to use English in my own way, not spoiling English grammar.
But then, can you join
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've come to, this is, our timekeeper is going to take some time. Okay.
Okay, so you see, times are changing and digital world is taking over in our parts of the world. So as a writer, how do you make your works and your books available out there apart from it being in the form of hard copies?
Right. Scholar. All these books were self-published. All my books, with the exception of which is called my Kojoran, were self-published. And then the Journal of Kabibi and the Witch of Faculty were initially self-published before master publication was designed. But this one, the new works that I'm talking about, filaments and all those are now being published